This is the first AI art happy hour. We're going to record it. Basically, the goal here is to bring on artists that we're excited about in the space, artists that we're talking about potentially collaborating with. Dadabots, for those who don't know, is a very prolific team doing very interesting work with music and AI for years, and more recently doing some NFT projects as well. Your work has been covered by the likes of Vice, Time, BBC, Bloomberg, etc. But I thought just to start us off, I would love to get in your own words, because it seems almost impossible to describe you in just a few sentences. We'd love to get in your own words. How do you describe what Dadabots is?
Hey, thanks for having me, and honored to be the first of many, and I'm stoked to hear about the other AI artists that come on board. And yeah, thanks for having me. Dadabots, we're extreme AI music, generative music producers. We're like 20% an R&D lab that publishes papers at scientific conferences, and 80% content creators collaborating with underground music mainly.
Nice. And yeah, what kinds of conferences and what kinds of papers?
We actually started in like hackathon culture. I've done over 70 hackathons, and Zach and I, hopefully Zach might show up. Zach and I have been a team numerous times. We started at MIT a while back, just before deep learning, when it was just classical machine learning. And luckily in the Boston area, there were a bunch of like music and machine learning groups, like the EchoNest and the MIT Media Lab. They were looking at like, how do we analyze raw audio, perhaps to create with it. And we just like teamed up with these groups, and with kind of like a mischievous attitude. Our very first hackathon project was we were trying to destroy SoundCloud. We were making these SoundCloud bots that would just spider it, find music, remix it without anyone's permission, and then repost it. Like hundreds of times a day until they got banned.
Wow. Yeah, that's super interesting. Wait, when was this? What year?
2012.
Give a sense? Yeah, wow, that's ages ago.
Yeah. And then we knew that like neural networks were going to be a thing, even though our teachers at the time were very skeptical about neural nets because they had lived through the AI winter. But we knew they were going to be cool for music. And we come from a music background. I come from the world of extreme metal, huge into death metal, mathcore, black metal, and take a lot of influence actually from the Japanese avant-garde scene, like noise rock, like Melt Banana, the Boredoms. And like all those artists were also collaborating with American artists like John Zorn, Mike Patton. That whole avant-garde scene is like really really where we're coming from, and within the world of AI music, there's a lot of different approaches. There are groups that are trying to spit out pop songs. They're trying to top the charts. There's companies that are trying to make algorithms that'll produce jingles or music for advertisement or film scores. And we, our very first academic paper, we actually set ourselves apart from pretty much what everyone else was trying to do, and really in this avant-garde music tradition. And that's why our first paper at NIPS was called Generating Black Metal and Math Rock.
No, that is really interesting. I mean, I know what you mean about like there's a lot of money to be made probably in programmatic music, and that the industry has been growing and the tools are evolving there. But what you're doing is kind of pushing things to the limit, making music that would not have been possible without AI. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, totally. Like just thinking about like how we can push further and further the avant-garde, and but pretty quickly it realized like instruments are the limitation. So then we shifted to electronics with like DAWs, making IDM, glitch, breakcore, experimental hip hop, like death grips, Venetian snares, kind of stuff. And then even realizing that the DAWs were a limitation, like Ableton Live and Logic and that kind of thing. Um, and we need machine learning, deep learning, and AI. We're gonna like unleash this renaissance of cultural creation, which we're actually still like before that. It hasn't like the unleashing hasn't even happened yet. So there's like only a few groups right now that have been experimenting with it, and the reason why is that you need hardware, you need GPUs to do this, and also of all the different kinds of areas where you can be content creating with AI, with text or image, music is way harder than those. So the models are way bigger, the data sets are much larger. Also, perceptually, our ears are very tuned to when audio is wrong. So you need to bring it to like 99.99% good before your ears will believe it. Whereas with image, there's a more leeway, and so that's why it's been behind. But I but instead of like keeping all this technology to ourselves, we publish what we do open source, and we've been publishing open source for 5 years. All our neural network code's on GitHub if you want to run it. But a lot of musicians, they're not coders, they're not used to using command line, they're not used to cloning a GitHub repo, so really the next step is to make these real-time models that can run in the browser, and also the benefit of running things in the browser on the client side is also that they can be stored on permaweb, with services like IPFS or Arweave. So we can actually have creation tools that are like guaranteed to exist forever. I could die, Zach could die, and these tools would still exist. These generators that you could interact with could still exist and play forever. And this is what we're super excited about. Giving to the world, and it's just a really tough R&D challenge to get there.
Gotcha. I think this is a good segue into talking about your NFTs, and you recently dropped some NFTs, and I'd like to know basically, you talking about permanence of artwork and artistic tools, but when for you is like the right time to introduce NFTs into the equation? Like what is the interest of NFTs for you?
Oh, great question. Blockchain hacking has always been a component of hackathons, much like machine learning was, and web and other things. We've always taken an interest from it, and it's just trying to hackathon. For those who don't know, it's like a weekend where a bunch of coders and artists, creative people come together, work on a project for 24, 48 hours, and then do a show and tell at the end. And it's just this magical place. I'm addicted. It's what I've done. 70. I'm trying to hit 100 in the next couple of years. And you're encouraged to imagine the kinds of worlds you can build. Blockchains, especially when Ethereum came into the picture, it was this. What could you build with programmable money? Can you create a better world by building your own economies? So very obviously, if you've been in the music industry, you realize that it's broken. It's an old system that is still run by major labels, the big three, and there's a royalty payment system that is like extremely slow. It may take years for artists to actually get their payments. They don't, and there's a lot of just missing information, and there's royalties that no one knows who's supposed to get paid. And there's a lack of transparency in the system, and also the major labels are incentivized not to fix it. For a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that if the money's not going into anywhere, eventually I believe they assume control of that money. Um, and also, if they were to admit that their system is broken, that doesn't look good on them either. And if it's not broken, don't fix it. And they still hold all of the they hold a lot of the power and the catalogs of the music, which has influenced the entire world's culture. And so, in an effort to try to fix this, at Berklee College of Music, where Zach and I met. Hey, Zach. Zach has joined.
Hey, glad to be here.
Hey, yeah. Zach and I met at Berklee College of Music as interns, and right around the time we were just killing time, there was the Open Music Initiative started at the school, and the Open Music Initiative was trying to fix this problem of the music industry using blockchain, and we took a lot of interest in them. And Panis Panay, who was heading it, who had helped us with the music therapy hackathon, and we went to some of those meetings, and we realized that the major labels didn't even show up, like they didn't care at all about fixing this problem. Zach, any comments you want to add about the Open Music Initiative and?
Yeah, I think that it was really interesting that they had such a big group of people building protocols and having a really big interest from the independent musician side. But there was, like you said, a lack of support from kind of the existing legacy industry. And I think that we're seeing that still. And it didn't quite take off. Like they built some protocols, the project kind of halted. And I know there have been some other attempts to like kind of fix the music metadata, and that's a lot of what is kind of clogging the pipelines to pay all the attribution, because there are a couple types of copyright in music, and there have been a couple types of ways that it's advanced throughout the last few decades, or even longer, I suppose, if you go back to like written compositions. And it seems like there are organizations built on top of organizations built on top of organizations to intentionally keep some of this as kind of like a black box, a secret about how the payments and things are distributed. And so sometimes I wonder when I see the lack of support from existing industries, when technologists and independent artists or people who are a little less established in the industry are trying to make a better future. I wonder sometimes how much there is resistance from the kind of legacy, and that's why these things are having difficulty taking off in the beginning. Um, and that's one of the main things I noticed about it, was that while they could be trying to create a flow of all of the metadata and ownership rights and attribution for everything, if you don't have the rights holders and then also the platforms that are distributing it buy in, it can be very difficult to actually get that whole system. It's like everyone wants the whole system to be in place for there to be a clear value for them before they'll jump and take the leap. But again, that's legacy platforms, and maybe there is this focus these days on moving forward and just trying to build new distribution systems and new pathways that don't just overwrite the old systems too.
Yeah, I guess what it comes down to is like CJ is saying, is if the incentives aren't there, the established incumbents, they're unlikely to change things. And everything he just said resonates with me a lot, because my full-time job is at Royal, where I lead the crypto team there, and Royal is working to put royalties on chain essentially. And we basically, we don't care if people like NFTs or not. The reason we use NFTs is because it's a way to circumvent all the kind of bullshit that's in the existing like system. I think what you kind of have been seeing in the last couple of years is, once there's money here in this like alternative system, then that's when the larger companies start to pay attention, and that's when they can no longer ignore the demand for a more open ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the NFT boom of last year is like second wave, from our perspective. I think that first wave, there were like a bunch of blockchain music startups trying to solve the same problem. Even Zach and I, we teamed up with Matt Lewis, and we made a licensing system for for automatic remix licensing. We called it copy middle. We even built this whole attribution engine, and we proposed it to Universal. And we're like, you could apply this to your back catalog, and you would make money. And
Yeah.
they didn't have any interest, even though they were throwing like the Capital 360 hackathon. Even had the incubator. I don't think they ended up supporting any of those companies at all. There's a lot. I think a lot of people got disillusioned after just none of that working first wave. And you're right. This like second wave of like fuck it, let's build the ecosystem ourselves. And now, especially with the music. Music NFTs is like the second wave, and we're seeing all these new projects coming up, like Audius, Catalog, Sound XYZ, Nina, Min Songs, Song Camp. There's just endless. And as a also as a member of Noise DAO, I get to actually meet with these groups every week, which is awesome, and just support them, like support the ecosystem, and it's cool to see it like grassroots, and it, who knows how it's going to evolve, but like the music is unstoppable. It'll find a way.
Music to me is one of the most interesting within this NFT space. One of the most interesting, kind of subspaces of it, precisely because the existing system is so bad for artists, because it's so kind of tied up in these knots where the financial back end of it screws people over, and there's kind of no way out of it. So that's why I think like music NFTs is like a true consumer use case, like actually supporting the artists in a really, really tangible way. I'm interested in getting your take, tying it back to AI art specifically. What's the role of AI in all of this for you?
So it turns out, being an AI researcher, you are far more likely to score a collaboration with a band or an artist than as a musician. the number of times that Zach and I have cold emailed bands we like and have them respond with yes. Maybe my message would be, hey, we're just a couple of researchers working on this new kind of model, and we're looking for bands to experiment with and put out a release or something. Most of the time, people respond with a yes, which is, it's all kind of, it's one big trick just to collaborate. I think. But recently we worked with, I think the greatest living guitarist alive, Pliny from Australia, and South Africa, Slam Death Titans, Volvadinho. We've worked with the UK beatbox champion Reaps One, and now we're working on something with the American champion Vocoder, and just a bunch of bands that we like growing up. Zach, yeah, who else? Who else did we work with? What have been some of your favorite collaborations?
I liked the collaboration with Adam Neely. So just working with other creators online who are definitely in the same world, music and art, but also sharing a lot of like information and what they've learned and ideas and philosophies. I thought that was amazing because a lot of people outside of our immediate world of like AI, art, death metal, crypto knew about Adam Neely. So what's really beautiful, I think, about all the collaborations, what AI really enables is kind of being like the glue between different ideas. It allows us to play with our ideas and just hand those off to people, let them hear variations, permutations of each other's ideas, or put someone inside of an echo chamber of themselves. And as these kind of like technologist um, artist hybrids, I've just found it really cool to be able to give people like Adam Neely um, a way for us to collaborate on our channels and kind of find a way that we're not just these independent artists, but now like we found how to kind of like multiply our forces together. So that I always look for the collaborations where someone's excited to just hear the tool, and we can kind of explore something new together and bring our audiences into some new ideas together.
And this is across the board. It sounds like it's not it's not just young artists, it's not just electronic music. It sounds like this is a wide range of artists, experienced artists from across a range of genres.
Yeah, I think it can reach a really diverse group. And I mean, who doesn't? I mean, to speak to like older artists, they have the biggest catalog to train on. So it's really amazing to be able to hear everything you've ever created. And, you're probably very familiar with the ideas in your own art and the motives and the movements of your art and the textures you use. And to see it all reconfigured, I think it has even more value to an experienced artist. While maybe a lot of new artists are more open to using these tools from the start, I think there's a ton of value for experienced artists and very, veteran virtuosos, like SCJ mentioned, like Pliny, who's definitely one of the world's best guitarists, who found all kinds of interesting insight out of hearing a neural reinterpretation of his work.
Right, and I love the way that Pliny like purposely designed the training data to get a particular result. And what he had done was recorded an hour in with a C-sharp drone, um, and focused on the texture and the nuance and the the sort of like non-melodic, non-like shred parts, but like the timbres of it, and that totally comes across. After we'll train a sampler on it for 4 or 5 days on that training data, and then after it's finished training, we can generate hours and hours of new content and curate from that. And that's exactly what we did when we created like a 1 minute guitar solo that we pulled from that and put it into our recently our entry for the AI song contest, which if you're listening and it's June 2022, we could definitely use your vote. Go and vote for us. Keep AI music weird. Woo!
Yeah, you can find the link on Dadabots Twitter, right? Which is twitter.com/Dadabots. So check it out. And I'm curious also, is this a recent phenomenon? Artists being interested in these kind of collabs? When you talk about like you reach out to artists and tell them you're researchers and they don't need convincing, is that a recent phenomenon or is that?
Uh, I think it's kind of recent. I mean, people have always been intrigued, but it wasn't as clear what AI meant. And we didn't even call it AI in the beginning. We were probably just saying like we're using the computer to automatically generate more of you. And so there was a bit more explaining that had to be done. And today, I think people have seen Deep Dream, they've seen DALI 2, they've seen some other examples of what this takes in as an input and gives out, um, whether it's visual or audio. So I've found that it's at least been the education level for artists who are not involved in it has been much greater every year. What do you think, CJ?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially over image generators, like just the demand to get an invite to Dolly or a Midjourney is insane. Like we're seeing a renaissance right now for image generator, for clip cans, for diffusion models, all those apps which have made it really accessible. Like everyone wants to join those beta programs. But before that, there was, those tools weren't available, so it was very easy just to really reach out to anybody, and if I received an email from a group like, hey, we have this brand new research, it's in beta, no one's tested it, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm gonna give it a test ride. And right now this is true for music, and I think it'll always be true because there's always going to be newer processes that are cool. But what I'm excited about is making these things super accessible so that like everyone can play with them and make music that's never existed before. Make music between the cracks. Make fusions that we've never seen before. And this like the renaissance with image art gives me. I'm just so excited for what we're gonna see with music. Like 10 times more excited than what we're seeing now.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's I think like what we've seen from not just AI but technology in general, what I've been noticing is that the barrier to entry of people creating art and just the number of people who are, making art in a real sense worldwide, I think is growing. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's growing exponentially, and a lot of that has been in the visual sector, photography, uh, iPhones, taking photos, camera in your pocket. But we haven't quite seen it as much in music. I mean, there's a lot more bedroom producers, a lot of young electronic artists, and there is a lot of growth there, but it hasn't quite reached the point of like every phone is capable of making like something that you would really call like original music. What I found really interesting about some of the I was looking at some of your blog posts, but you talk about what you call conceptual or synthesis, which I can't say I understand all of it to be honest. But what stood out to me is that you're thinking of neural networks as an instrument, not just like these kind of oddities of like it's like you search on YouTube AI music and you get these things that sound like they came out of a multidimensional radio or whatever. But what I see in your work is thinking a step beyond that. What if the AI, the neural networks, are an instrument that can actually be fine tuned, controlled by people? Is that kind of the image you're thinking of when you think of like what do you think is this future where everyone can create music with AI collaboratively?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When people ask us what instruments we play, we're like RNM, transformer, LSTM, diffusion. Zach, what instruments do you play?
Yeah, I play the conceptor, the catch waveform, the rave.
So yeah, so what does it look like when this is in? You two are very technical, but what does this look like when this is in everybody's hands?
When it's in everyone's hands, I don't actually see them operating at that level. And the same thing is it's like with like Les Paul. Les Paul, helps bring on this revolution of the electronic guitar. Guitar gets into lots of people's hands, and you have this renaissance of guitar music. But not everyone is a craftsman. But people can pick up a guitar and start playing it, and you don't even need many lessons. You can be already in a punk band, or and it's awesome. And so I see it at that level. I think it's like iPhone, iPad is probably going to be the most accessible thing. Like we're going to even see toddlers making music, coming up with brand new genres of music that's going to go viral. That really excites me. I'd love to see this in the context of music therapy. Love to see what different groups within neurodiversity are going to come up with. And that really excites me. But then there'll be this small core of like highly technical people that have gone through the hoops of understanding how to toy with neural nets and deep learning and GPUs. That would be the craftsmen that are creating these instruments. That's how I kind of see it, and we approach it that like the neural net is the instrument, and we can modify it to do things. And it's just really really fun. A lot of groups kind of follow what the state of the art is. They follow the trend of like when Transformers came out, they dropped RNNs, and then now everyone's moving to diffusion models. But we're really interested in what each of these kind of architectures sound like for themselves.
Yeah.
Like sample RNN has its own kind of feel. Like what do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I think that just like having again, we come from the music side, so having a bunch of different type of amps or pedals or recording on tape versus recording on digital, these things all have a lot of meaning to musicians, and they get their own preferences for different types of instruments that they can use, and there gets to be a lot of nostalgia built up around this, and I really believe that's going to happen as well. And as far as how the conceptual idea of having a network that kind of controls a network, what I think is kind of cool about that is that maybe we don't trade audio files or MP3s as much in the future. Maybe we trade these instruments, and these instruments, they're kind of like a synthesizer, but they're also kind of like sample in the traditional like hip hop vinyl sampling sense, and it's both a representation of something real from the real world or a real song, but it's also morphable and modifiable, and it's like Play-Doh, and we can squeeze it and we can stretch it around something else. And that is just maybe not the end that I imagine, but it's a cool next step beyond thinking about just generating these things, having a big dump of stuff as if it's like push button art. I think that what's really important and will continue to be important is that music's for humans. We make art for humans, and we don't really want a button that pushes the next pop single. We want to be able to be part of that because humans have important things to say to each other as a communication through art and media. And what's really cool can be just controlling these networks. And some people think about it like it's an instrument. Think some people think about it like it's your spawn or your kid. Some people think about it like it's a collaborator or like a teacher or a trainer. And there are a lot of ways that you can use models to enhance your own humanity. And I think that's what we want to move towards next.
Nice, really well said. It's funny you mention thinking of the AI as a spawner kid. I feel like that's a reference to Holly Herndon.
Exactly. Yeah, we were talking to Holly earlier today, so I think that came to my mind. Her
Oh yeah,
work's great, and she really
just today with
personifies that.
on the podcast, Interdependence, that one.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
the one.
exactly.
Nice. Yeah, we're honored to have come right after Interdependence. That's awesome. Moving back into like NFTs a little bit. Before we open the floor for questions. In the context of everything you just said, this super fascinating space and super fascinating future. But tell us about these two drops that you did. Fake Feelings, which was a release with Braindrops, and then Byte Beats, which is a release with Art Blocks through Art Blocks Factory. What was the motivation behind these, and what are you expressing by combining NFTs with AI music here?
Oh yeah, good question. So yeah, when we got invited to Art Blocks, it really clicked for me that generative art and blockchain like go together extremely well in like a really native way. Like all the Art Blocks code to generate all of those is stored on the chain. It only depends on the Ethereum chain existing, and every time you mint, you're creating something new, and it's like this collaboration between the collector, the generator, and the artist. And when you're a generative artist, you're not thinking about individual pieces. You're thinking about a process that makes pieces, and it's this meta level, which is just like extremely addicting and extremely like mind expanding to work within it. And so with Art Blocks, you're dealing with like the world of the very very small code, because putting storage on Ethereum is expensive. Every Art Blocks project is roughly between 10 kilobytes and 100 kilobytes. So for Byte Beats, we're pulling in some ideas from demo scene, from this world where people were creating content for very old computer chips, and they only had a small number of bytes to work with. And actually, every composition that gets generated in Bytebeats can fit in a tweet. They're all below 140 bytes. So the code generates a function, and the function generates the audio, and the audio will actually run for 10,000 years. And if you have a Bytebeat, you can go to the Bytebeats website, dadabots.com/bytebeats, and load it in and into the time machine player, and you can like skip ahead in time up to 10,000 years. And what happens after 10,000 years is that we start getting all this like int overflow stuff, and eventually it decays into silence, like slowly, which is a pretty cool decay that's just sort of accidentally emerged. So that's the Art Blocks approach, and And then with Braindrops, they're based on IPFS, and IPFS is a lot cheaper storage solution. And so you can store gigabytes on IPFS affordably. So that means we could generate video and upload that. So with Fake Feelings, it's 1,000 videos, and we could use heavy duty neural nets that take a full day to generate. So each of those songs took a full day to generate, but we trained them on multiple GPUs for months and months. We generated I think about 2,000 songs, and then curated them down to 1,000. I went through each one of them and threw out all the bad apples, because it'd be unconscionable to give someone something that they're spending money on and not have it be ace. So we trained it on. We're working with this band Silverstein, and they're an emo band. They're actually one of the earliest and largest emo bands. And so we made it seemed like the perfect irony to make AI generated emo. And we called it Fake Feelings.
It's kind of like the no soul robots don't have soul funk mix that we did as well. This seems to be a theme, CJ.
Right, yeah, emo and soul are the perfect ironic AI genres to work with. and what I love about that process is, maybe in the past when we work with a band, we would put out a 10-song album on Bandcamp, and then we moved upwards to the generative live stream. So we have these 24/7 generating live streams on YouTube. We have several of those. But then, when creating crypto art for a collection of 1,000, it's like putting out an album of 1,000 songs. It's once you have this process that could easily make 10, can you make 1,000? And the way to experience that is it could completely shift. Instead of this same album that everyone listens to and everyone can share the same memories of each of the hooks, is now each listener gets a unique perspective. They get their faded song, which becomes theirs, and they relate to the collection and to each other through that, which is, I think, just fascinating. And I was heavily inspired by, right before Fake Feelings, there was Jonathan Mann's song "A Day Drop," where he had recorded, human recorded every single day of his life for the last 14 years a song. And then he dropped it all at once. And the song I Was Faded was called Singing Up in a Tree. And it's just him up in a tree singing the song. He's like, I'm up in a tree, look at me. And I thought it was just perfect. I'm like, yes, this is my song. This is great. And yeah, there's something about fate and randomness, kind of like opening a fortune cookie and really letting that influence you for the rest of the day. Yeah, fascinating method and process for making music.
Yeah, of course, tying it in a little bit with what we do at IKANI, but that's, I think, a really good description of what we're doing. Our process is just a little bit different because we let the users curate as opposed to doing top-down curation and user creation of the poems. But we basically try to let people find what we like to think of like the gems in the dirt, kind of like trying to find something that appeals to you personally. So that that really resonates with what I see as like the reason to even involve NFTs at all is like, I think the first time I saw like AI music on Spotify was Arca released 100 remixes of a song on Spotify as a 100-song album, remixed by Bronze AI, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting, but the whole album is 5 hours, 6 hours long. I can't imagine listening to 100 remixes in a row. But when you think of it in this other context as in, oh, I can actually find the one I like and own it, and it's gonna have its own album art. It's kind of a different way of interacting with it.
Yeah, Ken, I love how you're saying that the crowd sources the curation, hunting, gathering process for the artist. One of the problems that we had faced was how difficult it is to go through 10 hours of content and find the stuff that's worth the audience listening to. And sometimes I question how much that matters, or if this should be an interactive process in an ideal world. And I do see that the NFT kind of functions that way by allowing people to grab the one that they want to purchase and go through listening some of that and kind of mapping out what's and flagging what's worth human listening, and then you meant that. I think that's actually a very cool use that I hadn't really thought of it in that context.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we picked poetry as our first kind of medium, but lots of interesting potential here. I'd love to ask you to, as a last question, and then we see if there's any questions from the audience. But what's next for Dadabots?
So I guess there's kind of two fronts. One, we're now part of this larger AI music lab called IKANI.AI, and we're powered by Stability AI, and they have access to more GPUs than NASA, or at least that's what Ahmad said. 4,000 A100s. That's so much GPU power. We're going to be able to train the largest multi-genre neural nets that have ever existed, and open source. So it's an open source non-profit lab just to do this research and give it to people. So that's really what I'm mostly excited about for the next 3 years. Is that.
And number two, what about season one? I feel like we are also making some art.
Yeah. Dadabots season one. So over the last year, we've been working on a dozen different funny little projects, and we're all just gonna release them in one a week in succession, like a TV show or whatever. Season one. What do we got? We got Dad Bots, which is our dad rock incarnation.
Where can we find this?
If you follow us on Twitter and subscribe to YouTube, you won't miss it. We'll be talking a lot about it. Zach, what are you excited about for Dadabots season one?
Oh yeah. Just excited about a lot of the old jukebox albums that we've been curating, as well as, man, we have hundreds of albums that we don't release to people, and it's just nice to have kind of a dump of them. That's the problem with AI music, is you have too much, and it gets hard to know what is worth sharing. So this is a fun time to share all of the kind of the B-sides, if you will, of what we've been sitting on for a little while.
What was the name of that collective again that you work with?
Oh, Harmony. So harmony, but instead of the Y, it's AI.
Like Harmon.AI.
Yeah, not to be confused with Harm and AI.
And sort of like a subset of Stability AI, which is the whole goal is to be like a grassroots open AI, and even more open than OpenAI tends to be with their permissive use of their models.
Yeah, OpenAI's GPT-3 isn't open source. Yeah, we need to be actually open source. And also we've been inventing new kinds of audio synthesis. There's two new forms of synthesis that we created recently. One is trite beats. So trite beats is music generated by a ternary computer, aka a trinary based CPU. So binary CPUs are 0 and 1, trinary 0, 1, and 2. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a reason to use trinary, because it's a more efficient radix economy, but the hardware hasn't the hardware cost of it hasn't caught up yet. But we made an emulator for it, and we made these really small trinary based tritwise operation based music functions that create music. And guess what? All of the rhythms, all the composition, all the patterns, even the harmonies and the melodies everything comes in groups of 3, 9, 27, 81, powers of 3.
That is insane. This is AI.
Lots of waltzes. Lots of waltzes.
Yeah, it's like waltzes within waltzes within waltzes.
And is ML based that you're running on?
No. Yeah, this isn't machine learning. It's just a low level emulator that we built, and we released 3 videos on Foundation that got scooped up. And if you want to hear it, we also made these cool visualizations. So yeah, check out our Foundation page, and we're building an emulator for art blocks, actually, to run this on art blocks. So that'll be an art blocks drop.
Wow, awesome. There's too much to keep up with. You're very prolific.
It's too much to keep up, and another one that's even more too much to keep up with is also making this quantum circuit audio synthesizer.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I even have I have a demo running in the browser where you can build a quantum circuit. It's a simulator in the browser, because your laptop on the client side is a classical computer. So it's a simulator quantum circuit, and you basically just like an analog synthesizer, you like a modular synthesizer where you mix and match components to create a system that produces audio. Here you can mix and match quantum circuit components and it'll produce audio. And that is also just a line of research that we've been doing on our own, and trying to condense that down into an experience that we can give people, so they can actually mess around with quantum computing themselves. Like, even if they're not computer scientists or anything, just giving people that drag and drop like sound feedback experience that may even be their first introduction to quantum circuits. I'm really excited about that one.
Where can we find that one? I gotta check that out.
If you search, Shoyu has had an NFT marketplace called SushiSwap has an NFT marketplace called Shoyu, and when they opened, we with Key and Christ, we dropped the first example of the sounds we made with it. And if you look up Quantum Genesis on Shoyu, you'll find it.
Cool. So, thank you so much for the rundown. A lot going on. Are there any questions from the audience? Well, that was time flew. That was super interesting. Any last parting thoughts?
Yeah. One other sort of like avant-garde NFT movement that we're kind of a part of now is like this idea of dangerous NFTs, and this falls under a tradition of dangerous music. So from the Boredoms, Yamataka-ai, he has a danger music project called Hanatarash. Zach, do you know this one?
I love the Boredoms, but I don't actually know very much about danger music and what Yamataka is doing with that.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Yeah. So he actually has a side project where he drove a bulldozer into the back of the venue.
Oh, okay. So real danger in the real world.
Yeah, like actual danger. And in that tradition, I'm thinking like I really want to own like a dangerous NFT. So for at ETH Denver, our project was on dangerous NFTs, and I made a button called "Burn All My ETH." And if you clicked it, it would open up a transaction asking you to send all of your ETH to the burn address.
In true Dadaist fashion, anti-function here.
Anti-function, right. So I'm interested in that. I also want to see more like poetic terrorism. Like right now, I don't know if you know the Worm NFT, but
No.
someone made a contract that trapped the worm, and they're called the Wriggler, and they're like enticing the creators into this game to try to get the worm back, and it's just fascinating.
What does the worm do?
Oh, the worm is just like a fun game. You just pass it from person to person to person, and it's like there's the Church of the Worm, and it's just a fun thing. There's no like money exchange involved, and then someone, it's like someone's paying like pass the ball, and then like a thief comes in and like takes the ball away and like locks it up, and then forces everyone to play a game to get the ball back. That's what is currently happening.
This is with some kind of smart contract.
Yeah, it's with the smart contract that exploited some vulnerability in the worm.
Interesting.
Which finally leads to my newest idea in this realm is to set up a regular 51% attack on a proof of work chain, probably a test net, where you can have enough GPU to actually control 51%, and then just see what can happen during the 51% attack, where maybe they can be an entire drop. All these users sign up, they register for ENS names, there's a community, things are happening, people are withdrawing money to fake exchanges, and then the miner just wipes away all the transactions like it never happened.
It's like blockchain chaos engineering. So using the blockchain for artistic statements and exploring the danger within the world that we are all moving blindly towards with passion. Sounds like your interest, CJ.
Yeah, there's just something really dangerous about the blockchain that I love. Like the fact that at every moment there's phishing scams trying to steal my MetaMask. Like the fact that I could get mugged on the street just surfing the internet at any moment is exhilarating. And I think a lot of people hate it for that reason, but I actually love it for that reason. And whenever there's been just dangerous society, there's also been really good music. I think those things have always been paired together.
What a note to end on. I don't know if I love it or hate it, but I definitely feel you that there's something dangerous that's compelling about the crypto space, and artistic as well. Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure to have you too. Thank you so much. Love chatting with you, and yeah, love to keep the dialogue open. Lots of interesting stuff going on. Maybe a way for IKANI and Dadabots to work together at some point.
Sure. A final question for you or anyone in the audience. What would you like to see from us? Because we're prolific, we're open, we are creating new things all the time, we're collaborating all the time. Like, what would you like to see us do?
Yeah, anyone want to raise your hand? No idea is too crazy. Yeah, I think it's hard to one up the things that you've already done, but there's probably plenty of more space to be explored, I think, in like music and NFTs. And how many drops have you done so far? I know about the two that we talked about a little bit, and there was the other one I'd show you. Was that?
Let's see. Bite Beats, Trite Beats, Fake Feelings, Black Skin Machine with Kian Christ, Quantum Genesis with Kian Christ, with Holly Herndon, did I Throw My Things Down the River.
Wow.
5?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6.
Okay, here's a request. Do something that's like creative with the smart contracts, because a lot of NFT launches, they don't get creative enough with the actual smart contract code.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I love what was it? Fingerprints DAO is a whole DAO that just supports people that are experimenting with smart contract, and I'm big influenced extremely influenced by Pac, and I've been just trying to think of really interesting things I can do in that regard. One, I recently learned how to use the Layer 0 protocol for like Omnichain message protocol. You know that one?
Yeah. I haven't used it yet myself, but yeah.
Right.
Some idea on that, yeah.
Right. I think it's kind of cool. What you can leverage with cross-chain message passing, and even just coming up with games where you have two teams. So you you align the chains in an order where it goes like Avalanche, Binance, Polygon, Mainnet, Optimism, Arbitrum, and then you have two teams that start on either side, and then they race and play some capture the flag game, and they can kill each other. If you're on the same chain, you can like kill another player.
Like
It's
that Assassins kind of game, or
yeah, like Assassins, right?
wow, so much room to explore. Everything you've mentioned today is a whole lot of stuff I'd love to learn more about, look into.
Awesome, awesome. Well, yeah. Thanks for having us. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And yeah, follow us. Yeah, if you go to dadabots.com, you can follow us from there on Twitter. We post every day, basically. Subscribe to our YouTube. That's where most of our content goes.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Super fun.